Hello and welcome to this video about Grizzly Bird's new album Creatures. My name is Hans Gnendinger and I need to warn you, this might take a while. Because I can't really tell the story of this album without summarizing my whole journey as a musician so far. So I'm going to turn on the virtual slide projector and we'll take a trip a few years back into the past. Further. Even further. Further. Alright, that was a little too far. Let's start here. I grew up in Füssen, a small town on the edge of the Bavarian Alps. It's a very popular tourist destination and some parts of the town feel like one big retirement home. Of course, as teenagers, we thought it was very boring. In hindsight, that might have been a good thing. Without all that boredom, I don't know if my friends and me would have ever had the ambition to learn instruments, grow our hair and make loud music. Like on this occasion, shortly after my 16th birthday. I've been playing the guitar for about a year. Later I played bass in a band called Orbit. Inspired by alternative rock and post-rock bands of the new millennium, we put as many effect pedals on our guitars as we could, and our shows were very, very loud. At some point I started singing and wrote songs on the acoustic guitar that were not very loud at all and didn't really work with the band. I began recording those songs in the afternoons after school on all the instruments I could find, until I had enough songs for a CD. My name is Hans, this was my solo album, so I called it Hans Solo. Obvious, right? I didn't even think about other people listening to my songs. It was more about the process for me. Writing songs, arranging, recording. It's such a mesmerizing experience and to this day I still find it fascinating. After finishing school, I moved to Berlin, along with the other members of Orbit. We wanted to record those Orbit songs too. Unfortunately, we never really finished anything before the project fell apart. Then I worked on a second Hans Solo album. This time I didn't just do it for me, I did want people to hear it. The album Silence was released in 2010. Only then did it occur to me that I would like to perform this music live, and that I would need a band for it. Silence had some chamber music elements, and I used to play the violin when I was younger and know a little bit about the instrument, so I wanted to perform with string players. And indeed I found a string ensemble that would be a big part of my life during the following years. IG Streichmetall. What an inspiring time. We played many shows and I wrote a whole lot of songs for this lineup. Soon I began thinking about the follow-up album to Silence. I planned an even bigger artistic statement, a whole new style of music combining all of the elements I love. Folk, chamber music, even some of the loud guitars of my former bands. I can't remember when exactly I came up with the name Creatures, but the core thoughts of Creatures go back to this time. I tried out some recordings in my home studio, but I wasn't really convinced by any of the results. The songs were too complicated and my expectations were too high. By then, I had written so many songs that I had a new idea. I put aside those complex songs and focused on the other ones, the unstrained and unplanned songs, in order to make my version of a pop album. The result is called Head in the Air and came out in 2016. A multicolored mix of ideas, playful and light. 2017 brought a new beginning. Hans Solo became Grizzly Bird, and I started playing as a trio with Florian and Niels. But I was still thinking about Creatures, the album I wanted to make as a follow-up to Silence. A philosophical inquiry into the nature of humans, animals, and our space in the universe. And again, I found myself with too many songs for a single album. So I decided to take out the songs about animals and release those as a separate EP. More and more songs about animals kept coming, and what was supposed to be an EP became a full album. Empathy, the first album as Grizzly Bird, was released in 2019. An enormous amount of thoughts and energy went into this album, and to be honest, I wasn't sure if I would ever want to do something like that again. Empathy was planned as a sister album to Creatures, but it seemed like a real possibility that it would remain an only child. Empathy was mixed by Cameron Lang at the studio The Famous Gold Watch. A real stroke of luck, as he's someone who understands my musical ideas, no matter how far out they may be. Plus, the atmosphere in the studio just makes you feel at ease. Until then I had recorded almost everything at home or in our rehearsal room, and the thought of having to perform in an expensive studio under time pressure made me nervous. With Cameron, a new world opened for me. I booked 2 days with him in 2020 to record with Florian and Niels, without really knowing what. Some fresh new songs that should show us strength as a trio. And the results exceeded my expectations. Never has recording been so easy, so quick and so funny, and never have we sounded better. Surely I will never record at my home again. The EP Somewhere Between was released in 2021, also on vinyl, a first for us. And soon after that, we went into the studio with Cameron again, because I knew that I had finally found someone who could help me make those old musical dreams reality. At last, the time had come to record Creatures. A decade had passed since I first thought about the follow-up to Silence. 3 other projects I recorded instead. It felt a little strange to play those songs that I wrote in my early 20s. Am I not a completely different person now? I have 2 kids and made so many new experiences. So the album is kind of a compromise between today's me and the early 20s Hans. I hope he agrees. I hope the album turned out as unique as he wanted it to be. Anyway, it just felt good to finally be able to close this musical chapter. To be able to say, this is it and it is done. Empathy now has its sister album. Those songs that have been on my mind for such a long time will now be yours, and I can't wait for you to hear them. And I'm looking forward to your reactions.